Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Aesthetic Fortune and I am planning on doing reviews on books that I have read and considered interesting enough to talk about. In this inaugural episode I will cover the novel Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by the German writer Patrick Süskind, published in 1985. It follows the life of Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, a man unique in several ways. Firstly, he is born with an extraordinary sense of smell, such that allows him to break down composite scents into their basic components, distinguish between thousands of individual odors, and track down people, finding them in a crowd like a hunting dog. Moreover, he has a memory to match and can, in his mind, store every smell, keeping them in separate compartments and mix them as he pleases, creating countless new combinations. As a peculiar detail, he himself lacks any odor, which per the narrative is a sign of him not truly being human. From birth, Grenouille is not wanted by the world, his own mother wanting to kill him. He is, however, tenacious and clings to life, not for a love of living, but for the power of hatred and spite, his existence compared to that of a blood-sucking tick. It's important to note that the novel doesn't follow a realistic narrative, but is rather quite fantastical. A great accent is made on the olfactory world and the effect that it has on people's behavior. The smell that individuals exude has a direct correlation to how they are not only perceived, but also treated in society, and can affect people to an extreme extent, even making them lose all self-control. As mentioned above, the protagonist lacks a smell, making him seem invisible to the world. For most, he is simply not there. Grenouille's motives throughout the story change, often seemingly at random, from becoming the greatest perfumer of all time, to escaping humanity and later on wishing to have power over others, to feel their love on him. The narrator, who is usually quick to give an opinion on his actions, condemning them over and over again, doesn't give much of an explanation at these crucial junctions, and in my opinion this creates a disconnect between the reader and the character. We are supposed to merely observe the actions and be satisfied to see them as monstrous and inhuman, rather than to try to get inside Grenouille's head and understand him. A few minor spoilers will follow that I still felt the need to include in order to flesh out my critique. The key people that encounter Grenouille all end up having a tragic fate, as though some evil power affects them. This paints the protagonist as some sort of devilish figure, a kind of antichrist that brings ruin, and yet this plot point never receives neither proper acknowledgement nor a proper resolution. The bad things simply happen to them as a coincidence, or in other words a contrivance. Despite the already short length of the novel, certain stories within it don't contribute much to the main narrative, such as his long stay on the Plomb du Cantal mountain, and the scientific pursuits of the Marquis de la Tallade Espinaze. As my final point of critique within the scope of this video, the aforementioned disconnect between the protagonist and the reader plays a role in the ending, which for me lacked the expected emotional intensity, simply because I could not sympathize with the decision that he decides to make. As a positive, the descriptiveness of the author when it came down to the details of perfumery and alchemy mentioned many times in the story clearly shows how he did a lot of research, becoming rather knowledgeable in the matter. Overall, I would consider it a decent if a somewhat frustrating read, with the short length making it more palatable. That would be all for this book. I would appreciate any feedback you might have, as well as potential suggestions for what I should review next.